Story 1. 2340. The apartment was supposed to be empty, yet the scent of his cologne refused to leave. The apartment finally settled into a strange quiet, the kind that feels posed rather than natural. The door had closed behind him, but the air still felt crowded, like a conversation hadn't finished. I told myself echoes were normal after a night like ours, yet the silence felt rehearsed, waiting. My boyfriend leaned against the counter, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. His perfume wasn't the one hanging in the room. The warm trace of the other man clung to the air, stubborn, fresh. A thin draft slipped between our arms, as if someone had just passed through and decided not to announce themselves. I picked up the blanket on the sofa and found the metal bracelet tucked under the edge. It shouldn't have been warm, but it was. When I lifted it, my fingers brushed the textured fabric beneath, still holding a shaped dip, like someone had just gotten up. The air around me shifted, carrying a faint sweetness that didn't come from either of us. My boyfriend walked by, close enough that his breath skimmed my ear, warm and careful. "We'll figure it out," he whispered, but his voice felt borrowed, like it wasn't meant for this apartment anymore. Down the hall, the shadows stretched in ways the lights couldn't explain, leaning a little too far into the doorway. I tried to reset the room, closed curtains, straightened cushions, folded blankets, but the place felt wrong in its bones. The walls absorbed our movements instead of echoing them. I kept replaying the way the man had left, the soft laugh, the confident steps. None of that matched the heavy stillness crawling through the apartment now. We sat on the sofa, and at some point his knee pressed into mine, steady and grounding. But a warm drift of air rolled down the hallway at the same moment, carrying that same cologne, soft and deliberate. My boyfriend didn't look at me. He stared into the dark, like waiting for someone else to finish stepping forward. I walked toward the bedroom, thinking distance would help. He followed, close enough that our steps almost synced. A loose strand of hair fell across his forehead, and I brushed it away with the tip of my finger. His skin tightened, a tiny shiver rising under my touch. The hallway light flickered, splitting his shadow into two, one of them standing just a step too far back. In the bedroom, the quiet thickened. The air felt humid, listening. Somewhere in the living room, the bracelet tapped softly against the table, as if it had shifted. Neither of us moved. The sound didn't echo. It just settled into the room like it belonged there. Around 1 a.m., a metallic scrape slid along the hallway wall, slow, patient. My boyfriend's hand tightened on the sheet. The sound paused just outside the bedroom door. The stillness that followed wasn't relief. It felt like a held breath waiting for us to acknowledge it. He shifted closer, his arm brushing my side with a warm, brief pressure. When he leaned back, the cold that replaced him felt intentional, like someone stepping into the space he'd vacated. I sat up and found the bracelet resting on my pillow, still warm. The scent above it wasn't ours. It hovered like a message. I stepped into the hall holding the bracelet, feeling the metal pulse with leftover heat. The apartment breathed against my neck, a slow curl of warmth that didn't belong to anyone living here. In the microwave's reflection, I saw a figure standing behind the bathroom door, still, tall, patient. My boyfriend came up behind me, but the whisper against my ear came from elsewhere, soft and close. "You already let me in." The bathroom door drifted open. The bracelet slipped from my hand, skidding across the floor until it stopped at my feet, pushed by something I couldn't see. My boyfriend gripped my wrist, his eyes locked on the empty doorway like someone was still standing in it. "If someone stays after they leave, what do you do? Would you have stepped back or waited for it to cross the threshold?" The camera footage the next morning showed the bracelet falling. Nothing else. No hand. No shape. But some nights, when the apartment settles, I feel that same warm breath behind me waiting for me to turn. Story 2. The kitchen was too quiet when I found the crumpled receipt with a time neither of us remembered. The morning light hit the counter hard, like it wanted to expose whatever we'd missed last night. I picked up the receipt, still half asleep, and felt him enter the room behind me with that soft, measured silence he uses when he's thinking too fast. He stepped close enough that our shoulders almost touched, his fresh perfume still clinging to him. The light painted his mouth when he leaned in, and his hand brushed mine as he said too quietly, "We didn't pay anything at that hour." I tried to steady myself by fixing the crooked collar of his shirt. My fingers grazed the warm fabric and he went still beneath the touch. The kettle hissed behind us, out of sync with the tension settling around the receipt. Then he spoke again, closer this time. His breath pressed hot against my ear as he murmured, "Maybe the app glitched." The pause before "maybe" was heavier than the words themselves. I checked the payment app to prove him right, but old notifications suddenly flooded in. Payments marked as seen during the same odd hour printed on the slip. None matched what we remembered. He stared at them like he was calculating which version of the night he could still defend. We sat at the table. His knee found mine under the wood and didn't move, a warm pressure he pretended not to notice. His perfume hung between us, sharper now, like it had been reapplied for someone else. A strand of his hair fell forward, and I reached out, brushing it aside with the tip of my finger. His skin tightened in a shiver he couldn't hide. He watched me too long after that, as if waiting for me to accuse him of something he hadn't admitted yet. Silence settled over the loft with real weight. It listened to us, measured us. Even our breaths felt loud. When I set the receipt on the table, his eyes followed it with a tightening focus. I went to grab my jacket, desperate for clarity, and felt another slip of paper inside the pocket. A second receipt. Same amount. Same timestamp. Perfectly flat, freshly printed. He stood in the doorway watching me find it. He crossed behind me, his arm grazing my side, leaving a warmth that stayed long after he moved. A faint perfume clung to my jacket. Wrong scent, wrong place, too recent. A shadow slid across the glass wall, but no one else was there. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stepped close behind me, breath warm on my neck, whispering, "Don't answer." But then his voice echoed from behind us, even though he hadn't shifted at all. I answered anyway. The escort greeted me by my full legal name, each syllable precise. My boyfriend didn't react with confusion, only a quiet resignation. Later, the bank showed 3 versions of the same receipt, each signed in a different hand. Have you ever found a receipt that said more than the person beside you? Story 3. A closet door upstairs was cracked open in the dark, even though I hadn't touched it all night. I walked toward it slowly, the house still warm from earlier, the hallway too quiet for this hour. The door hung open just enough to suggest someone had slipped out before I arrived, and the air felt still, watching. My shoulder brushed the cool wall as I got closer, and a faint, freshly worn scent hovered above the stairs. The hallway light shaped the door's edge like a mouth half-parted. When my fingertips neared the handle, something inside shifted, soft, like fabric nudged by a breath that wasn't mine. I told myself to check the guest bed first. A loose thread grazed my neck, and when I reached up instinctively, my fingers caught the warm hoodie I was wearing. I tugged the collar, the fabric rasping lightly against my throat, and it made me think of how close the escort had stood hours ago when he said goodbye. I pushed open the guest room door too fast. The hinges complained. Then a low voice formed behind me, ending right against my ear, warm and slow. "It's fine. I'll tidy up." The exact cadence he'd used earlier. I froze, wondering how a memory could breathe like that. The room looked untouched. Bed smooth. Curtains still. But the quiet had a pulse, like the house was holding its breath with me. The closet door, cracked an inch wider now, felt like it was waiting for me to acknowledge it. I crouched to check under the bed. My knee brushed something solid, quick, intentional. I jerked back, hitting the nightstand. Nothing was there. Only a faint scent hanging in the spot where my leg had connected with nothing, and a silence tight enough to feel deliberate. I stood too fast, steadying myself as a loose lock of hair slipped forward. When I swept it back, my fingertips touched my temple, but the skin rose as if someone else had brushed it first. A shadow on the dresser didn't match mine, holding still when I moved. I backed into the hallway. The silence pressed close, almost guiding my steps. Even my breathing sounded borrowed. The closet stayed cracked open behind me, and the clothes inside shifted just enough to suggest someone adjusting their position. Halfway to the stairs, something ran behind me, fast, bare, deliberate. I spun, shoulder hitting the wall. The hallway was empty. My boyfriend's soft snore behind his closed door never changed. Whoever moved back there wasn't him. Warmth lingered on my chest when I touched it, as if a palm had rested there too long. The same faint scent deepened in the hallway, the escort's perfume from hours earlier, impossible to justify now. Whatever had touched me hadn't gone downstairs. I reached the top of the stairs again, drawn toward the guest room. The closet door waited, wider than before. A presence leaned close, warm breath brushing my ear without touching skin. A man's voice whispered, "You didn't have to rush." The echo slid from behind me, then from inside the closet, then from farther down the hall. I forced the closet shut. The latch clicked. I stepped back, pulse hammering, trying to reclaim the house as mine. But before I reached the stairs, the door eased open on its own, slow, curious. And the scent in the hallway wasn't fading anymore. Tell me, have you ever heard a voice in your house that shouldn't be there? Story 4. 1:12 a.m., the hotel silent, and the bathroom light switched on long after the checkout. The corridor outside felt carved out of stillness, the kind that makes every breath too loud. Miguel tried to laugh off the tension, but the sound died fast, swallowed by the room like it didn't want witnesses. I kept telling myself Evan had left minutes ago. The door had shut. The night should have settled. But it didn't. Miguel crossed behind me to grab the keycard, and our shoulders almost touched. His freshly applied cologne rose warm between us, catching the dim lamp and drawing a soft line along his mouth. The carpet under us was still damp where Evan's bottle had spilled, and something about that lingering moisture felt wrong, like another presence refusing to evaporate. I bent for Miguel's shirt, and when he moved to help, I reached out and adjusted his collar. My fingertips grazed the warm fabric, slow enough to feel the heat beneath it. Neither of us spoke. The door lock clicked once behind us, then again, methodical, patient, like someone learning the rhythm of our breathing. Miguel leaned close, whispering if I'd locked the door, but his voice landed inside my ear, warm and slow, like a secret meant to distract me. I stepped toward the peephole. Before I got there, the bathroom light flared on again, washing the carpet in cold blue. The air shifted, heavy, like someone had walked right between us and left only silence behind. I tried focusing on the keycard to ground myself. Proof of who belonged in this room. But the plastic felt colder than it should, as if it had been pressed against metal. Miguel rattled the doorknob to test it. It answered him with a soft, deliberate shake. Someone matching his touch from the other side. We sat on the bed to think, and his knee brushed mine beneath the blanket. It didn't move away. Heat bloomed there, too warm for a room this chilled. I opened my mouth to say something, but the bathroom door eased open another inch. No draft. No sound. Just a quiet slide, the kind people make when they're trying not to be noticed. Miguel rose for water, hands trembling. A loose strand of hair slipped forward, and I pushed it back with the tip of my fingers. The skin beneath shivered, soft and reactive. That was when I caught it again. The faint trace of Evan's cologne drifting out of the half-open bathroom, fresh enough to suggest someone had just stepped away from the mirror. We both went silent. Not scared, listening. The room held its breath with us. A charged stillness settled over everything, like the walls were leaning in. The fridge hummed, then stopped mid-cycle. A pause too long, too aware. He left, right? Miguel asked, but even the air seemed to wait for our answer. We checked the hallway camera through the hotel app. The corridor glowed under those harsh fluorescent lights, empty, still, untouched. Nothing moved. Nothing cast a shadow. But behind us, the lock clicked again, a soft mechanical warning. A reminder. I turned toward the dresser. The keycard was gone. Miguel lifted the lid of the ice bucket. There it was, wet, glistening, placed carefully at the bottom like an offering. When he handed it to me, it left a warm patch on my skin and carried a trace of cologne that should have faded hours ago. Before we decided our next step, the lock cycled. Unlocking, locking, unlocking, like someone outside was swiping a card again and again with calm persistence. Miguel backed away. I stepped forward, then froze as a warm breath skimmed the side of my neck, a low murmur brushing past my ear. Something hovered near my shoulder, close enough for the air to tremble. The lock released with a soft click. The door cracked open, not forced, authorized. A cold draft slipped in, followed by a movement with no body, a shape that disturbed the humidity around us. At the front desk minutes later, the clerk frowned at the screen. "Sir, the system shows 3 guests in your room tonight." And I felt that breath again right against my neck. You ever shared a room with someone you never saw leave? Story 5. At sunrise, my phone buzzed on its own with a message using my real name, one I never gave the app. The phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m. I was half awake, the kind of limbo where the room feels muted and too bright at the same time. My boyfriend Eli was still breathing slow beside me. We hadn't opened that app again since Friday night. But the screen lit up on its own. A notification hovered there, polite and wrong. "Good morning, Daniel. Your session has updated." The app had never asked for my real name. I sat up, and Eli shifted closer, our shoulders almost touching. A hint of perfume recent pasado drifted from his skin, something warm from last night that shouldn't still be there. The sleeve of his t-shirt rode my arm, a light drag of fabric that made me aware of every inch between us. The phone's glow drew a thin line of light across his mouth, like it was choosing where to look. The notification refreshed, as if someone else had swiped it. I picked up the phone and the screen felt warmer than it should. A system banner slid down on its own. "You are still in the date." No timestamp. No sender. Just that. Eli leaned in to read, and I reached to adjust the collar of his shirt so I could see better. My fingertips brushed the fabric, soft, slightly warm, just enough to feel him flinch like it wasn't a mistake. His breath caught. Behind us, the hallway stayed too still, like the apartment was listening. "Maybe it's a glitch," Eli whispered, but he said it too close. His voice landed warm against my ear, slow, a murmur that stayed on my skin longer than the words. I lowered the phone, and for a heartbeat I could swear the device pulsed, almost like it matched our breathing. Her profile picture flickered, the one from Friday night. Then the screen dimmed without my touch, as if something had finished reading us. We tried to act normal. Coffee. Curtains half open. The kind of routine that's supposed to anchor you to reality. But every few minutes the phone vibrated again, a soft tick on the counter. No preview, no icon, nothing in the log. I checked Eli's phone too. Cling. Not a single alert from the app. Only mine kept waking up like someone was tapping from inside it. We sat at the table to compare settings, our screens side by side. I felt his knee press against mine under the wood, steady, intentional, not pulling away. The contact sent a small tremor of warmth along my leg, enough to raise goosebumps. The air around us felt heavier, a quiet humidade, like the apartment hadn't fully dried after the night. Then the app opened by itself. A system log appeared, steps recorded inside residence. 3:41 a.m. Neither of us had been awake. Eli kept scrolling through the log, his jaw tight. A strand of his hair fell forward, and I moved without thinking. I lifted it gently with the tip of my fingers, barely grazing the skin near his temple. The spot reacted with a quiet shiver, a tiny rise of pelle arrabbiata. He exhaled slow, like the touch steadied him. But on the screen, the steps replayed as an animation. One path led straight to our bedroom door, then stopped there. We didn't speak for a while. The timing of our silence felt deliberate, as if the room itself held its breath with us. I set the phone down between us, and the faint warmth of its casing lingered on my fingertips, like someone else had been holding it minutes before. Notifications began to stack. 3, 4. Then they disappeared all at once. In the reflection on the black screen, I thought I saw movement behind us. When I turned, the hallway was empty. By late afternoon, the app changed again. The companion's profile picture was gone. In its place was a blurred frame that looked like carpet fibers and a corner of a nightstand. Ours. I checked the metadata, but the image had no file info, no upload history. Eli locked the door, slid the chain across, then checked it twice. His hands shook even in his pockets. The phone buzzed once more, a quiet pulse, like a breath under the surface. I stepped away from the table to think, but a faint warmth clung to the side of my neck, as if someone had leaned close minutes earlier. When Eli brushed past me, his fingertips barely touched my shoulder, just a light pressure that left the impression of heat. My shirt held a trace of perfume that wasn't ours, something recent. Then the phone vibrated again. A new alert slid across the top. Photo updated automatically. The preview showed a new angle of our bedroom, taken from higher up as if someone stood right beside the bed. We stood frozen, both staring at the new photo. That angle wasn't possible unless someone had been standing right over us. Eli stepped closer, and his breath warmed the side of my neck, a slow exhale he didn't mean to share. He leaned in, his mouth near my ear, just close enough for a murmur that never came, because another voice reached us first. A new notification slid down on its own. Your companion is beside you. The hallway shifted, a weight choosing where to stand. You trust an app that knows where you sleep, wouldn't you? We tore the phones apart. Uninstalled everything, reset settings, killed Bluetooth, killed Wi-Fi. None of it mattered. When mine turned back on, the history was still there. The app claimed the date had never ended. The timer kept counting upward. Eli asked if I smelled it too, a faint perfume, freshly applied, drifting from the bedroom even though neither of us had gone in. I checked the door frame. My shirt brushed it lightly and the wood felt warm. Some nights, that warmth returns around 3:41 a.m. If it happens again, I don't think I'll check the phone.